What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about ND filters, variable ones. Specifically, these. These are the Freewell variable ND kit, and it comes in a couple of different flavors, and we're going to talk about why I really like them. But first, before we get into these specific ND filters, what is an ND filter? Let me give you my explanation of what an ND filter is in 30 seconds or less, okay? And go. ND or neutral density filters are like sunglasses for your camera. They're used to add an additional exposure control point, which allows for more creative control over certain aspects of your image, and when used properly can really enhance the cinematic look of your shot. Now, variable ND filters are made up of two polarizers that are precisely stacked so that when you rotate the front element, it smoothly darkens or brightens the image without any stepping. Shots like these, where you have a very shallow depth of field with an extremely blurry background and a lot of separation between the subject and the background, while outdoors in the middle of a bright day, would not be possible without some type of very strong ND filter. I'm going to take this filter completely off so you can see how bright this day is with no ND filter. Right now we are back at the 6 stops, so again, controlling it down to roughly about 9 stops. Here, we're at the 9 stop stopper. Now this is 9 stops. Now I'm going to take it off. Okay, so I'm sure that you can't see me at all at this point. Full on white screen. What's nice about a variable ND filter is in a situation where you're shooting and it's very bright outside, but let's say your shot is a moving shot and it moves from that bright sunny situation into a heavily shaded area. If done properly, you're actually able to adjust that brightness with no stepping, without having to stop your shot, and without having to change the filter. So it can be really valuable. Now, variable ND filters are not without their problems, though. High quality filters can be extremely expensive. That in and of itself can be a barrier for entry for a lot of people. And then more affordable variable NDs have major problems with green color cast, cross polarization, and image clarity, depending on what you buy and how much you cheap out. Believe me, I have experience. I have cheaped out on variable ND filters in the past, and they can be pretty bad. Sometimes you get lucky, but they can be really bad if you're not lucky. Now, to clear some of this up, green color cast I think is pretty self-explanatory, and sometimes, depending on how severe it is, it can be counteracted by simply doing a manual white balance, and it pretty much cleans that right up. Now, as for the image clarity issue, if you have an ND filter that's not very high quality and it has image clarity issues, there's really not much you can do, so you're going to end up with a soft image. Now, cross polarization with a variable ND is a different animal entirely. It's something that isn't necessarily always easy to spot when it's happening until you get your footage into post. The easiest way I can explain cross polarization is if you're shooting with a variable ND filter and you're in a very bright situation, you may actually end up turning those polarizers too far past the maximum or past the recommended maximum, and what happens then is you end up with this subtle, but when you grade it, it gets to be much more obvious kind of cross pattern in your footage, and it's sort of a variation of light and dark, and it can really screw things up as far as your footage goes. There's really no good way to remove it. You can actually see an example of cross polarization caused by a variable ND filter in this clip from a Matty Hapoya video that I was watching the other day, and I happened to notice this and thought I could use it as an example. You can see up here around the edges and around the corners that you've got a variation, kind of a weird pattern of light to dark, and you can tell it was a very bright day. So this is an example of what sometimes might happen with cross polarization. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that Matty probably wasn't using a cheapo ND filter. He probably just inadvertently turned it just a tiny bit too far and didn't realize it during the shoot and just used it anyway. So not too long ago, I actually decided I was going to invest in some better ND filters, and I wanted variables. And this actually came about after having some clarity problems on a paid job, which when I realized that it was because of the filter I was using, I felt pretty dumb. So I thought it was probably in mine and my future clients' best interest to make sure that I invested in a better quality piece of glass to put in front of my expensive lens. So after searching and searching B&H and Adorama's websites, I was just about to purchase the very expensive Polar Pro Canadian Pirate King variable ND filters when I ran across these Freewell filters. Most of the reviews looked really good, and they kind of looked like almost like a rebranded version of those Polar Pro filters for like half the price. So I thought, well, I'll take the chance and see how it goes. And honestly, I'm really glad I did. So to get down to kind of the meat of the review, I really want to get into specifically the build quality right off the bat. These ND filters are the best built physically ND filters that I've personally ever owned. Now, there are two specific physical features that I absolutely love and will no longer want to live without that these filters have that other filters that I've had in the past don't have. The first of those two features is the fact that these ND filters have hard stops on both the low and the high end of the variable range, making it so that you never end up crossing into that cross polarization zone. It stops you before you can even get there. So it kind of guarantees that you're going to have better image quality coming out of this ND filter than you would out of anything else that I've had in the past. Add to that the fact that the actual turning motion, the feel of the turn of that variable ND filter is very smooth, and there's just the right amount of resistance to feel very premium. Additionally, another really unique feature of the Freewell filters that I've never seen on any other lens filter setup is the fact that this is their proprietary lens cap, which is magnetic. So it just magnetizes right to the front of the filter, and it's not coming off. It's not like a weak magnet. It's a pretty strong magnet. And what's nice is you can actually install your filters on your lens like that and then pull these right off, and you don't have to worry about possibly scratching it with those stupid little springy things and all of that. These things are sweet. What's cool that goes along with that is Freewell makes a bunch of add-on filters that are also magnetic, like a haze filter, for example, or additional ND filters or polarizers or whatever you want to stack on here, and these lens caps are, completely compatible with all of them. Aside from that, I would just say the overall build quality feels extremely premium. Even the cases that come with these things are very secure. They have a nice magnetic closure to them, and they're really well built. I have no concerns about these banging around inside of my bag. They are not going to get damaged, and the filters are nice and heavy and solid feeling. They feel like they can take a beating, no question about it. Now, real quick, moving on to image clarity, we're going to compare these ND filters to a couple of different versions of ND filters that I've used in the past. We're going to see what the differences in image clarity are. All these shots that you're seeing are still photos that were taken on my Sony a7R III. So we're going to punch in. Now you can see here that the image clarity of the Freewell filters is incredibly clean. If you compare side by side, these are both taken on the exact same lens with all the same settings. I didn't even change the white balance between shots, and I'm shooting at this chart to kind of make sure that we see the differences in clarity in the same exact features. This is also shot in manual focus, so the focus didn't change between filters. So there's nothing at all that could have changed here, and you can see just how much clearer the image with the Freewell filters are versus the Gobe filters. Now, there is a minimal color cast, and I think that this is just something that happens as a result of the type of ND filter that this is. Well, I think when you have those two polarizers together, you're almost always going to run into at least a little bit of that green color cast. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, you can kind of counteract that by doing a manual white balance setting. And then just the overall user experience with these filters has been excellent. I love the use of them. I love that magnetic lens cap. It makes it so that I don't have to worry about having a lens cap that'll work with my filters. It just works on everything. Using step-down rings, which I highly recommend if you use multiple different lenses with different filter ring sizes, I can basically use these filters on almost every lens that I own. That being said, it's really nice to be able to have that high image quality baked in with that variable ND. It's indispensable in my mind. I love how smoothly they adjust and how they incorporate those hard stops. It really makes it kind of a no-look operation. You just adjust until you hit a hard stop, and if that's the case, you gotta go to the other filter, or not. Whatever. But as far as I can tell, you'll never run into that cross polarization with these filters because of those hard stops, which is excellent. By the way, not sponsored by Freewell. This is my personal opinion. I bought these with my own money and I use them because I love them. But overall, I have to say that these filters definitely get a big 2 thumbs up from me. Their usability, their build quality, you know, the ability to have that variable ND with next to no real degradation of image quality is amazing. I love these things. I'll be using them until they're too damaged to use anymore. But yeah, they're great. I totally recommend them. If you happen to be interested in trying out a set of these Freewell filters, I've put an affiliate link in the description below. I would really appreciate it if you click through and use that. I might be able to get a little bit of a kickback at no additional cost to you, and you know, you'll get some great filters out of it. So it's a win-win, right? Either way, I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. Grab that subscribe button if you haven't in the past, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.